Was somebody else speaking? Okay. Oh, okay. So
welcome, Shama. Welcome to the show.
No, I don't know why it worked out this way, but I do know why. So, Swindle was muted for me in Discord this entire time, and that was because when I did a Star Wars event with them, I had to mute them on my side from that, and it was a holdover.
Just had our producer muted.
You just thought that Sam was just falling deeper and deeper into the void of just talking to absolutely no one, and Pastry and I are just stone cold ignoring what he's saying.
I heard him talking
Sam's
to
just
him.
like 3613. Switch to this. Oh, okay, it's good.
I heard him talking to him, but I thought, maybe
1629.
maybe they're in the same room together, and I just can't hear the other person because they're not by the mic. And then when we got to the countdown, and it was like clicking for me, I'm like, wait, I don't hear. Wait.
Didn't look at who's sitting in the Discord. For context, those are our producers, and we changed producers for Dan. Chalmer had one of them muted inexplicably from a different event they did. Oh, that's great.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Sorry.
It's all good. It's all
Do the
good. I wanted to do a different bit, which was going to be just start the show so that Casanova would miss the only time we didn't do the cold open. But it's way too late for that. But we do definitely need to start the winning point episode number, I think, 10 at this point. I am Blevins. That is Charmer. That is Pastry. There are mystery ghosts behind the scene that may or may not be muted. How's it going, gentlemen?
Great. Now that I know that the voices in my head are my own, I guess. Wow. Okay. Sorry. I feel really bad about that. But in my defense, there was a reason for it the last time. I'm doing well because we have more Riftbound news, even though we here in North America cannot yet play the game. Other people are already pushing forward, and that's very exciting for me. And so I'm waiting for us to talk about that later in the show.
I think every week I expect there to be nothing that happened, and then to have to make something up or do one of the many theme episodes we keep shelving, and then things keep happening. So I like that. It makes my very cushy job here on the show much easier.
I also like how before every episode we're like, this is going to be a super tight one. I don't know if we're going to have a full episode, and then it will probably be one of our longest episodes. And if that is the case, you need to make sure that you are liking and subscribing this video. Subscribe on all of those channels and all that good stuff, because we are, especially once we start getting products in North America, we've got some stuff brewed up. We've got some things that I can't spoil too much about. Mostly because the details haven't been figured out yet, but there's stuff going on. You're going to want to be subscribed to the channel. I want to tease it. I don't want to spoil it. But make sure that you're subscribed is the TLDR. But let's jump in and talk about the surprisingly large amount of stuff that's been going on this week. The first thing here is that there were, I think, the most number of tournaments played this past weekend for Riftbound that we have seen. We had the Rift Lab trials. There was a tournament on Thursday that I don't remember the name of because they didn't really publicize it, but Alan ZQ won it. There was, of course, the Riftbound Meta Weekly. There was a Riftbound France event that happened in the French Riftbound Discord. There is stuff popping up left and right. Tournaments are a brewing. If you want to check out more stuff on tournaments, check out Battlefield Breakdown right on this channel. But Charmer, what are your thoughts on competitive?
One, it's very exciting that we have so many events running before the game even releases, but it's also very interesting to me that we're already kind of seeing mini meta shifts within the small number of events that we've had. And that's not uncommon. You and I covered Legends of Runeterra in the early days, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember very specifically when set 1 was coming out, there was, because of those early tournaments, right? Even some of those closed beta tournaments, there was almost like this solved meta of sorts that everyone had. If you're not familiar, Shadow Isles aggro was like a very popular set one thing in that game, and everyone kind of assumed that like that was just going to be it. It had been figured out, it had been solved, and then that ended up not being the case. That's not to say it wasn't also the result of some modifications for that game, because early iterations of Rasa, for example, got changed, etc. But I've been thinking a lot about the early days of that game and how it's going to apply to Riftbound, because I truly think that we already have like a mini revolving door with our existing meta, but it's also just like really diehard Riftbound fans playing the game right now. And don't get me wrong, very smart players doing it, well-known card game players, but things will be different when we hit the masses, right? So I'm kind of enjoying the little mini revolving door that we have as people kind of clamor for how this works. But I'm also really looking forward to what happens when everybody gets their hands on it and there's just exponentially more games played. So that's my thoughts. And I mention that mostly just because like when I look at these events right now, there's, not that anyone's saying this, but somebody could say like, okay, well, there's like, 3 decks and the meta is kind of solved, right? We still see a lot of Kaisa. We're still seeing, some of those green decks do well, etc. I don't think everything is solved yet, though.
No, it's basically like Kaisa and then like cards with numbers on them, and like that's it. And that's very clearly
meta.
Exactly. That's clearly a lot more to the game than that. I think for me, like, it is cool seeing people try stuff, but I think there's definitely going to be a lot of evolution. I think there's just concepts in the game we don't really understand yet. Like how to play control, I don't think is explored at all in this game. I don't think people understand what that means at all. So that means that's going to make decks like Ari probably suffer. It's going to make slower decks, more mid-rangey decks. Even like Yasuo, I think, suffers a little bit from this problem. No one's really solved like the ramp matchup. No one knows if Aurora is actually super playable or it's just kind of a fun deck. Like Teemo is still underexplored. Mind in general feels super underexplored because even the Victor decks are kind of just playing all the auto cards and not actually any of the Mind cards. So like, I think people looked at like all the cards with good obvious numbers on them and decided to play them, which makes sense. That's an easy way to figure something out, but there's definitely a lot of exploration to be done. I think the other thing is that the people that are playing right now are the way more dedicated people that are probably a bit more online and that grew up with maybe other online card games like Letters of Runeterra. I don't feel like I see a lot of current pro players in like physical TCGs playing yet, even though I do see them talk a little bit about how interested they are in the game. And I think those people probably need like real stakes to play for, which right now isn't really a thing you can do. I think outside of China, maybe, where they can run tournaments that actually have pricing. But like when, the pro players of when the TCG pros of current day start playing this game too, I'm really curious what they do when their minds get turned to the game, because I don't think they're going to play until they can show up to a physical event and actually win some money.
Absolutely. Well, that is a good segue into an event that's actually happening this weekend. I think in one day from our actual recording, Luxury Gaming at Luxury Gaming TV1 on Twitter holding a free 1K event.
Let's go.
So actual stakes. It's a free entry. If you're hearing this, the tournament's already happened. So sorry, I can't help you sign up, but you can definitely, they're doing a series. So definitely check out that channel, at least to watch the events, if not even sign up for the event. Yeah, like you said, it is, diehard players of Riftbound right now. We have not gotten that broader audience yet. We have not had actual stakes yet. So, it's been for fun. It's been for testing. But once you put a little cheddar out there, people are going to really start to try and really start to optimize, which is good for the growth of the competitive scene. It's going to be less good for the people that just want to see 8 different decks in the top 8 forever. We're already starting to not see that in some tournaments, but it has definitely been way more diverse than I thought a set 1 meta would be for any game. I think back to old Hearthstone, and even though many decks were viable, it was like 90% of each deck was the same, was the same cards, because it was play vanilla 4-5s for 4, and that was good enough back then. So really exciting to see. And one last thing for tournaments here, because this is not the tournament show, but one last thing is the Riftbound Meta Weekly this week is the first, I believe, 2v2 tournament that is happening at a high level. So see a little bit of what the 2v2 meta will look like, which is that I know I personally have not thought about at all. Quickly, do either of you have thoughts on 2v2 or I guess just on non 1v1 Riftbound?
Yeah, I'll go first because I got to play it with Cass, and I'll say this. I really, really look forward to when this is a bigger part of like the competitive side. I think when the game launches, for logistics reasons, we're going to be focused on the 1v1 competitive mode. But what I got to experience when we played together was a lot of fun because of the way that different cards interact with each other in the format. Specifically, if you're coming from Magic, you might be familiar with like two-headed giant rules, for example, right? When you're playing 2v2 and Riftbound, there's a lot of similarities where some of the things that you can target, like when it says friendly units, for example, then you can target your partner's units, right? Because they are friendly. And so when you start looking at the ways that some of these decks interact with each other, what it does, especially here for set 1 on a fundamental level, is it allows you to run combos that might be outside of the legends that already exist in set 1, right? So if you've got, a Yasuo and you want to do some fun moving around stuff, but because of his color combination, you might not be able to do things, with Angie, for example, but then you could pair him with somebody who could benefit from that, right? So when we were playing at Gen Con, Cass was playing a Yasuo list that the devs had given us, and I was playing a Kaisa list, and there was a lot of really cool interactions just between the two decks that would not have crossed my mind in normal 1v1 deck building. So I am really looking forward to like when we get to the point where there's enough of a player base and enough of a tournament scene. It's got its legs underneath itself, because like I said, I would not expect this to be a wildly popular thing right out of the gate, but once we get there, it really, I think, will change the way you approach deck building when you're looking at it strictly from a 2v2 standpoint.
And I think that's good because, team card game stuff is like some of the best card games you'll ever play. Like even like Team Trios, which is basically just a BO3 between 3 1v1s that you play on the team. Like that's like glorified 1v1s. Even that is a significantly more exciting experience on average for card game players, because you get to like hang out with your friends and make decisions together and talk to each other. So the fact that a game that was designed to be multiplayer, like from the onset, and cards have therefore been formatted and designed and thought about with all that in mind, does make a format like Two-Headed Giant effectively, which truthfully is like one of Magic's more terribly shoehorned formats that they ran. There's literally one Pro Tour in the history of the game that's ever run Two-Headed Giant, and it was hilarious and fascinating in maybe all the worst ways. But like they don't run it very often, and there's a reason for that. Like multiplayer might be a huge part of Magic, especially now, and certainly they designed cards thinking more about that these days, but they did not when the game came out, and did not for a long time. Like it probably more than 10 years, way more than 10 years actually. Like closer to 15 when they actually started like, oh, we should play this multiplayer format and see how it goes the Pro Tour, and then it didn't go so well. So it is cool that they have it already as like a thing baked into the game that they're thinking about. I don't know if it will ever be like the premier format. That'd be cool if it was. Like if it's compelling enough and interesting enough to be, that's cool. But the fact that there's even a format that you can play socially and competitively that lets you play with a friend or play with other people in a game that highly values the social aspect of it is really valuable. Because I think that's the hardest thing about 1v1s is that ultimately, even if you're on a team playing with friends, testing with friends, like it's just up to you and your performance. And it's not really a team sport. So bringing the team sport aspect to a competitive card game is cool. So what it could be is really exciting. And I think this game is set up better than most because they wanted it to be when they made it, which is a big difference between many other games.
Yeah, like you said, shoehorning a format can feel really forced and not great, but if it happens organically, if it was designed to be that way, it can be really cool. I'm really excited to see how that tournament plays out, and I'm sure we will talk about it next week on the show. But let's move right along here. Small update here. A couple episodes ago, we talked about how Pixelborn is dead. We were all quite excited about being able to play that. But Pavel, who is the lead / only dev of Pixelborn, has teased out that they are working on a Riot TOS compliant version of Pixelborn, and they actually did stream a bit of early footage of it earlier today. I did get to check out the stream. It looks and feels quite similar to the original Pixelborn if you're familiar with it. It is still quite clunky. So don't, I would not expect to get your hopes up right quite yet. As you can see in this picture here, he says it's about 85% done. I think in terms of functionality, it's probably 85% done in terms of being able to play the physical thing. But I do think, and for what it's worth, credit where credit's due, Pavel said very open to feedback on, you know, what's working, what's not, what do you want to see, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have feedback for that, definitely go to the Pixelborn Discord, but it is quite clunky. It very much is, we had a thing that worked really well, and we have taken it back so that it fits the compliance of what Riot wants and requires for third-party apps. And I think that there's a lot of work in doing that in an elegant way. I didn't really have much thought in terms of a discussion for this, but Pastry, what are your initial thoughts on just Pixelborn coming back in one form or fashion?
I mean, I think it's a well-known platform that is pretty popular. So I think obviously depending on like what need it is serving among the community, but in general, I would say the community is pretty hungry overall right now because the game is out in China and it's not out in English, and people want to play right now because people are impatient. My main thing would be to tell people, just be patient. But I mean, as someone that grew up testing and playing a lot of third-party, non-automated pieces of software, playing a little game called Magic: The Gathering, I have a lot of love and experience for these platforms, and I think I would not have been able to like meet people and play and like test for events. Or been nearly as interested in like the depth Magic had to offer, especially at the more competitive levels, if those things didn't exist, because Modo either didn't exist or when it did, it was like too expensive for, you know, young teenage me. So I generally glad when this kind of stuff comes out because like the likelihood that people want to use it is high enough that like, why not? Obviously, like some people are upset, and we're a little, I don't want to say sad, but like, you know, there was some level of like, oh, it was cool. It's a shame it had to get changed, but we kind of knew it did. If Powerful wants to make something that serves the Riftbound community that is compliant with the TOS, great. I can't imagine that's going to be a bad thing.
Charmer, you got lambasted in the comments last time we talked about this. Do you want to dig? Do you want to double down or?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
You don't have to. You don't have to. But
I mean, I stand by everything that I said. I fully look, I get it. I fully understand that people just want to play the game and that we as consumers want as many ways to do that as possible and that we want it to be accessible as possible. But I also still think that it's not black and white. And I stand by what I said. There are benefits to having a catered and curated launch experience and getting people to play the game the way that you intend them to play the game when you are a company like Riot, I think is important. And it might suck for us in the short term, right? But I think sometimes we as players need to, you know, step back and say, okay, well, there's a vision here, and maybe what's best for the game is what's more in line with this vision. And if we are temporarily inconvenienced, like, it's not the end of the world. But again, like I understand the point of view and I empathize with everybody who just wants to play the game, but also like the game's not even out yet. Like, we're not entitled to anything. Nobody has spent any money on this yet, right? Not in any, like, I'm sure there's pre-orders placed, whatever, but like, it's not a playable game. Like, we can calm down, folks.
I mean, yeah, I generally agree with Trauma. I would say that my other thing is like, I've actually been more interested in like proxying decks and playing in paper and just trying to see like what's floating out there, what matchups feel like. But I also have the benefit of living in like a densely populated city where I can easily tap many interested card game players most times of the week and like organize a couple games with whatever proxies I manage to rustle up from whatever printing service I want to use. And where Blevins may have a different geography related situation for him. So I kind of get that.
That is true. Though I am max degen and will find the players wherever they are.
That's true.
Also, spoiler alert, I definitely may have placed a sizable proxy order. So
let's go.
Webcam games.
There you go.
Soon TM. The one thing I will say is that I think, I agree with everything that you're both saying as well. Like we can just, it's like literally like 2.5 months almost to the day that we're getting release. So it's not that long. Though I will say card gamers, especially in 2025, have been conditioned to think that 2.5 months is a super long time because that's like 4 or 5 sets worth of Magic spoilers that are going to happen in the next 2.5 months. So
you're not wrong.
Seems longer than it actually is. Okay.
It's too real.
On that note, let's move on here. It is. Things to get excited about, and another thing that I think is fueling the want to get your hands on the cards is that China. Of course, we've said it multiple times here. The game is out in China right now. It is out in Chinese. Many folks have started opening packs. There's a few channels out there that have been opening packs. You can find some pack opening videos online if you want to see people just open Riftbound packs. There's also, as you may imagine, there's cards being sold on eBay, and actually, Max Tapera, who of course you know from Riftbound content and as well as running the first event, did a quick little market review of stuff that has sold, cards that have sold on eBay. So eBay sold listings. Which is kind of interesting to see. It actually weirdly, like price-wise, kind of lines up with what we talked about last week in terms of like averages and what we thought might like signature cards and stuff might go for in that sort of ballpark. So it was kind of interesting to see. But have either of you seen any card openings or just seen people talking about opening Chinese cards? And follow-up question: how jealous are you of people that have Riftbound packs in their hands right now?
I have a feeling Charmer and I have the same opinion, but I want to hear Charmer's first.
So I will answer both questions with the same answer, right? You can glean exactly how envious I am of others based on this. I have not watched any of the opening content because it would make me angry and would also potentially tempt me to do things with my wallet that I'm not willing to do yet. So I have purposefully, knowingly stayed away, right? The same way that like I don't set foot in a casino unless I'm willing to lose a lot of money. I have not looked at the pack opening stuff for the Chinese cards yet.
Oh, I was actually going to say, so we're the opposite then, actually. So I would say I've seen a little bit, just because like Savage posted on Twitter, I think, like the first pack he opened. I was like, oh, that's cool. People are getting like Chinese packs and opening them. That kind of content, though, personally just doesn't interest me all that much. I think it's cool, and like no shade to the people that enjoy it. Like what you like, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's chill, but for me personally, like I just like jamming games. I don't really care. I will say, seeing more pictures of cards that people are opening and stuff, the cards look amazing. So that's super exciting.
So good.
They look so nice.
They look so good.
Obviously, there's a bunch of Gen Con stuff that I know Charmer showed off on his Twitter, and there's more like actual product circulating or images circulating, and the stuff looks great. But I'm a very patient person. I can wait, and because Chinese cards are only legal if your entire deck is in Chinese, I don't think I would ever want to invest, just because then I would need to source all the cards to finish a set, and then I'm probably going to do that in English anyway. So it basically serves no practical game purpose for me other than being like, I mean, at that point, like pretty fancy looking proxies. And there's a chance that the language rules change at some point, but as of now, that is the current thing. And I don't know, I have more than enough patience to wait. I think me and my printer and some old cards will be enough to get me through until October.
Fair. I will say for those that are thinking or holding out hope that the language rules might change, I believe that the reasoning is based on difference in card stock, so not like the language itself. I think it's printing in card stock. At least that's how I had it explained to me, because I was like, that's a weird rule to have that like doesn't make sense to me at all. And then they're like, oh, differences. I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking it's that. If it's just the language printed on the card, then maybe they could revert it. I could see that happening. One thing I will say is that I have a weird relationship with opening packs because I did it for a living for 2 years. So I've opened more packs of cards than most humans have. So on the one hand, I'm completely deadened to wanting to open packs for the most part. But also, I used to do an 8-hour stream and then go upstairs and watch people in the store open packs. So I have some sort of problem with me. I like opening packs, but I don't care to open them really myself. So I don't know what that says about me, or what sort of maybe I just need more iron in my diet or something. I don't know. But what I will say is that I'm excited that people are excited about opening the cards. The whole sort of secondary market and financial side, like the cards being, having value, building a collection, collecting cards is something that we missed out from a game like Legends of Runeterra or TFT or other games that we've covered, which I personally like. I know a lot of it's a derisive topic in the gaming community. And all these Zoomers that were brought up on free-to-play games. But to me, I personally like it. So it's definitely something to be, it's a discussion to be had. And we'll actually, I'll put a pin in it because our mailbag is going to talk a little bit about that as well. But a lot of stuff happening this week. Like Pastry said, we didn't expect really to have too much more news. And then Riot said, hold my set 2, because we have got set 2 revealed, at least in name, art, and also champions here. We have got set 2 Spiritforged. Pastry, initial thoughts on Spiritforged?
So I will say, at the Influencer Summit event, when they talked about what legends they chose for and what champions they chose like for Origins, it was interesting to hear them basically say, like, we tried to do a mix of things. We mostly went with popular league champions, which makes sense. You're trying to like appeal to like a pretty broad audience. You want to hit as many people as possible with all your characters that people really like. And apparently one of the like game directors, or I don't remember specifically their role, but it's whoever's like alongside Dave, was like, I basically told them to put Teemo in the set, and that was the only thing I wanted. So this is the only time I've used my executive power. And I think Teemo is actually super cool. And I think also quite a popular champion, as it turns out, as like divisive and as much hate as Teemo has attracted. I think Teemo also has quite a lot of fans because he's a cute little guy. It makes a lot of sense. But I did specifically ask in the press conference, where's Ezreal? And they said, good joke, not telling you. And here he is. So just because Ezreal's such a popular champion, I was like, well, if that's one of the impetuses, it makes sense to have a champion like this. And I think this set of champions is super exciting. I don't know how many of them will be legends. I'm hoping all of them, but you never know. But just in general, I think the biggest thing for me is the fact that they are willing to say this is happening when it is happening, because they also announced dates, and there is still a gap between China and English release, but I think it's slightly shorter than the one we're getting for Origins. So, and they have also publicly said that like they are trying to close the gap as swiftly as possible, which obviously is the messaging you want to give out, whether or not that's true or not. But I do believe them when they say it. But the fact that they're willing to say like, hey, this is like this thing that's coming, get excited for set 2 now, that's super exciting to me, because it means there's a lot of effort and a lot of energy being put into the game's longevity already. And I think to me, that statement of intent is really important, because it would be easy for them to just release Origins, have it go really well. They're like, oh, okay, more stuff's coming, but like it's kind of late because we didn't know how much this would pop off. If you at this point, you have to have invested a lot of time, resources, and energy into getting here. And now they're willing to say confidently, hey, this is also coming. You're excited enough about this. Let's show you another set that's coming, or the next set that's coming up. And that to me is really important, because it shows that Riot actually cares about making this a thing that lasts, not just a thing they're trying to capitalize on now.
Yeah, I'm legitimately excited. I will say my initial thoughts were I looked at this and I kind of had a bit of a flashback or a bit of PTSD, really, because when I see Irelia with like this setup, I was immediately like, oh, wait, it's going to be like, where's Azir? Right.
Yeah.
From Legends of Runeterra, I'm like, all right, where's Azir? What's going to be the damage? Where are my Sand Soldier tokens, etc.? But then after the flashbacks stopped and I actually looked at what was, in the art and in the reflection of the blades, right? I very excited to see Ezreal. I will also say I was super excited to see Lucian there as well. Popular, really cool champ. I don't know. I want to see what they bring. I'm actually kind of surprised that for the key art like this that they actually gave us as much as what they did, if I'm being entirely honest. I would have expected something like this to maybe just be Irelia or have like a pair of champs, but the fact that they're kind of essentially announcing at least 4 with this plus, some more based on the product listings that are already up, says a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was expecting absolutely nothing, so this is already way more than I was expecting. But yeah, no, I agree, Charmer. It is a lot for a teaser, really, right? And it's interesting because obviously the only thing we have to base, the only set we have to base off of is Origins, which we know everything about now. But that does not necessarily mean that these are going to be the legends. It doesn't necessarily say how many legends there are going to be. It really doesn't. It gives a lot, but also it gives very little, which is, I think, that's perfect for a teaser. It gets you excited, but does not give away the whole set. Although it would be pretty impressive if they somehow fit the entire set on this one teaser. You just had to zoom in a lot. I mean, I for what it's worth, I haven't looked, so maybe it is there. But
putting on my tinfoil hat here for a moment, the key art for Riftbound right now does feature 3 champs that are legends in set 1, right? It's Yasuo, Jinx, and Ahri. So I know that it's not exactly enough data points to say we're fully on a trend, but until I'm told otherwise, I'm just going to assume that the people on the key art will be legends until I'm told otherwise.
I mean, it's probably a safe bet, but it's not necessarily the case, we have not, we don't know until we know, but it is very exciting. I am super excited about this is, I believe, going to be the first set with pre-releases. So I'm quite excited about
that should be the case.
Pre-release happening.
When they released that one article talking about it, they basically said after set 1, because obviously set 1 you've got like a retail launch date, so everything coordinates with that. But after set 1, we should still get the standard pre-release experience. I just realized when I was looking through our episode notes here, did we not grab the graphics for the product listings? Oh, we did. Okay. Before I talked about Rumble, I wanted to make sure that we had something ready for it because I was kind of teasing to it a second ago, and I wanted to say, hey, outside of the key art, we do also, we know that we can expect Rumble as well. So I'm excited for a little Rumble in the jungle.
This does also, I mean, Fiora's the 4th champion we didn't mention on the key art we saw on the right side of it.
Yeah.
And this does, without saying she is a
Fiora.
legend, this does basically say that Fiora is going to be a legend in the set and that Rumble is likely to be as well. I mean, we don't know because we don't know specifically how they're presenting pre-constructed decks for this set, but that's probably a pretty safe assumption. And also the domains are listed on there, which is cool. So we have, again, way more than I thought we were going to get just from 3 images, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. It would be really weird if they presented this as the Rumble champion deck and it's not your champion legend though.
Yeah.
He's just a card in the deck.
Just a guy.
We don't need to go super deep on this, but I do think that these types of starter deck products are super important for the game. If this was, 10 or 15 years ago in Magic, I would say that the starter decks were basically useless. products that sit on shelves unless they have an Umezawa's Jite in them for some reason. Looking at you, Betrayers of Kamigawa, Rat's Nest deck. But the modern equivalent of those are the Commander decks, which are some of the more popular products for players of Magic in general, and more specifically, an amazing first product buy for new players to be able to buy a deck and be able to play it right out of the box especially in Commander, and it is a viable deck. Unless you're playing CEDH, you are fine with a starter deck. And I know this because I mostly play starter decks at my local game store. Like, I mostly will play. I've got about 2 or 3 of the decks that I don't change specifically, and I play them against other people's non-CEDH decks, but are decks that they made, and they handle fine. They're in the game, and I've gotten a few wins as well. If these decks can present, even if it's just in a multiplayer function, like as a product that store owners, local champions of the game can say, hey, if you want to start playing, like, grab one of the decks, like, do a little bit of research, figure out what colors or what domains you like, what kind of play style you want, look up what deck fits that, buy a couple of packs, and you're ready to play. That is a super important onboarding thing for stores and for these local communities. So I'm putting a lot of stock into these, where I think a lot of players may at least I have not seen a lot of talk about these champion decks. So.
Yeah, we know they exist for Origins too, but we don't know the contents of them either. And I'm just hoping that they're good platforms for like comp play. Like, obviously, like, you're generally going to power these things down, but they almost always play well out of the box because they're designed by smart people. That's the true of most pre-con products now in this day and age of card games, which is nice. But I wonder how good of a springboard they'll be into like playing a meta deck. And obviously some of that is like Riot having to predict what they think will actually be good. And the other is like keeping the MSRP reasonable for the products they're trying to release to the public who want to maybe try the game and want to buy something that they can play right out of the box, which is also super important. But I think anytime you can strike a balance of like good, fun product to play out of the box that lets you leverage into more if you're interested in more, that's the sweet spot everyone's always trying to hit. And I'm curious how close they'll get.
Yeah, very, very interesting. We'll definitely be on top of talking about those as they happen. So, I mean, that's definitely all the news we got this week from Riot, right?
Nope.
Wrong. We got a whole core rules
it's
FAQ.
So long. It's so long. I was like,
Yep.
oh, this will be like 10 pages. It's way more than 10 pages.
So strap in. We're going to talk about basically the TLDR of this is the first pass of the comprehensive rules and core rules had some ambiguities, some confusing wording, some things that didn't necessarily make sense within the game rules. So this is basically a frequently asked questions that they have that Riot and the community have put together to answer some of those questions, and also some erratas or clarifications on cards from Origins here, and some interactions that may be ambiguous or not necessarily, the community's not necessarily sure how they're supposed to interact. So we'll definitely link this in the show notes. You can check it out at your leisure. It's also just on the Riftbound website, or at the very least, it was tweeted out by the Riftbound channel. So you can check that out there as well. But Charmer, initial thoughts on, I guess, just the vastness of the update here.
Yeah, so I was just reopening it just because I wanted to make sure that I gave credit where credit was due, right? So this was a casual, of course I open it and it doesn't give me the direct page count like normal, but
36.
36? Yeah, okay. So casual 36 page document that they, again, have released to us months before the game comes out. Like, we already got the first set of rules, and the fact that we got this now as opposed to when the game launches, because they very well could have done that. They could have waited till, a week before the game actually releases, compiled all of the stuff that people had sent in question-wise feedback, and just gave them, all as one big comprehensive update. The fact that they gave this now tells me that they are actively tracking and actively involved with what the community is already doing, and that I think bodes very well for the game. That, more so than anything that was in the document, was what surprised me the most, was what this says about the game that's not in the document, right? What it says about the game in the action of them doing this, because again, they did not need to release this now. They could have waited till, a week or two before the North American launch, say, hey, this is what we got. Now there is an argument to be made about, well, maybe these are also targeted to the, Chinese players, right? And there is that, but they didn't release it just in Chinese. They gave us the, the translated one as well. So I'm just personally very happy that we're getting that level of engagement with the community when the product's not even on the shelves yet.
Yeah, Riftbound devs and just the Riot side in general for the game has been really proactive, which is always nice to see. Dave's always on Twitter lurking around. Actually, well, I guess we'll talk about that in a second. but I will say this is something I really wanted to see. I think any time you can point people to a place for them to look through and answer common questions themselves, I think it's really valuable. I think some of the most commonly found content across different card games is basically people Googling rules questions and people answering them either in video or text form. I do hope that there's like something a little more online, let's say, a lot maybe more searchable. So when people inevitably do that for Riftbound, the search engine points you to the correct place and you can actually go read like an official source, which is cool. If not, I'm sure there'll be people spinning up, judge channels or whatever to be able to field those kind of things. And I know there is a judge program in flight right now for Riftbound, and I think these kinds of things help people that might be interested in that part of it as well, when they can really go over the rules and kind of pick over them. But to Chalmers' point, much like they didn't have to show us set 2, they didn't have to show us this either, and I'm glad they did both. It speaks to how much trust I think they're putting in the community to like be excited about the game, be good ambassadors for it, and like understand that the situation isn't ideal because people have cards and they don't, and that's like the number one way to piss people off. But I think this is like not just a show of good faith, but a show of like, hey, we care that you care about this game. Here's something for you to pour over.
Yeah, definitely good. And really, I think the importance of it can't be understated. Like having a comprehensive, in the strictest definition of the word, rule set is important for a game being played at a high level in a complex game like this. Like, it is not good or really acceptable for there to be like ambiguities in how rules happen, especially when it's the, Riot wants it to be the social game, a game that you're playing at a game store. It can't be like you call a judge and the judge goes, well, and reads the card and is like, yeah, well, it could go this way or this way. Yeah, I'll rule it in this way. And then they go to another store and it gets ruled another way because you could read it either way. Magic has massive, comprehensive rules and all sorts of different interactions with things that are literally 30 years old. But one thing that it is very exhaustive and comprehensive. Like there are, interactions between, horsemanship and phasing, right? Like, these things are, they come up and they've thought about them. And it's important that those things interact within the game, especially when you're playing at a high level. So really good to see that they're on top of this. This almost feels a bit like a video game in terms of like game dev and like releasing patch notes and stuff. But I think that is a good thing that you can take from video game dev and port over to TCG. So really excited about that. But it's that time, folks.
Let's go.
Our certified favorite segment of the show. It is the mailbag, and I think I came up with a new segment here. It's
here we go.
The BADASQTHECHJLUH, the Blevins asks Dave a simple question that he could have just looked up himself. My question this week was, is there an official order for the Riftbound domains like Wooburg in Magic? My choice would be Comfk. And Dave did reply, said the order officially is Fury, Calm, Mind, Body, Chaos, and then Order. Now, of course, Dave typed incorrectly here. He meant to put Angie, not Fury, but that's okay. So he personally likes to say RGBOPY. There it is. There's our Wooburg.
Yeah.
Charmer, what do you think? Does this work? I should have just thrown it.
I'm not going to go against Dave, so I'm down with the RG Bopey.
RG Bopey. This is also the order they appear on in the card gallery for what it's worth. I don't know why they decided on this order, but this is the order they decided on.
Yeah. Shout out to Anu, aka NZ DMTG, who I cast the finals of the Rift Labs tournament with, who replied with, I just go on the one I just base it off of the one on the website. And I'm like, yeah, that would have been a smart thing to do.
I will say, again, I'm not going to go against Dave, but there is a part of me that is slightly bothered that it doesn't go by the naming convention that we all remember, the colors of the light spectrum, right? So I'm sure we all learned in school the old Roy G. Biv thing to remember.
Yeah.
So in this case, it would just be Roy G. Bip, right? Because the purple's replacing the violet. Roy G. Bip. But at least like I would already know to remember it, right? I'd be like, oh yeah, it's Roy G. Bip.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely
I can get with RG Bopey too.
Yeah, RG Bopey's pretty good. It's better than whatever dumb thing I put. Confirmed RG Bopey. There it is, folks. If you were wondering, which I know no one was. Let's move on here. We've got another question, which, by the way, if you want your question to appear on the show, make sure you're leaving a comment on the YouTube channel, tagging us on Twitter, or just putting a comment into the void somewhere that one or all of us can see, because we will grab questions from anywhere that we can see them and potentially can make them onto the show. We've got from Bready to Play 390, who's great name, who says the best format for any TCG is base versions affordable so people can play, and cooler versions of the same cards with special art scale up in rarity and price. This is definitely something we've started to see in Magic in the past few years with collector boosters versus play boosters. Pastry, what are your thoughts on this as the quote-unquote best version of TCG?
I think making cards affordable is really important, but it's always tough because the company that makes the cards does not sell them on the secondary market. So there's always this tension of like, at some point, like you could have all the supply in the world. Would the most impactful, important card that everybody wants copies of, like, not be however much it's like the ceiling for the card is going to be? Probably not. Like, and I don't think reprinting like alt art versions helps you there. It just gives people things to aspire to, which is also cool. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. We've seen that with Legends in Origins, and I think we've talked about it a bit, but I think the balance being struck here between collectability and playability is good in this game. I think the way you prevent this from happening is make sure supply is good, which obviously any company selling any product is going to want to do, because if people want to buy it and you run out, that's kind of bad view. Like if you sell the best mop in the world and the mop store runs out of mops and everyone wants to buy your mop, it's like, well, unlucky, I guess. We just lost money this month because we didn't have enough mops to sell. Like, I don't think the secondary market, though, is like, it's agnostic to this stuff for the most part. I don't think reprints can only drive down value so much. I think the best way is like just design a balanced game as best you can, and hopefully there aren't cards that are so overbearing that they become super expensive, assuming supply is relatively normal. And I don't know, so far I think that's going to be the case, especially since there's no like super like the stuff there's nothing that's super chasey. Like even epics, I feel like are come up relatively often that they won't be too expensive. But I mean, kind of hard to say. I would say I generally agree with the sentiment, but like I don't really know how you even correct that. Like it's not really the company's thing; that's the market's thing.
Yeah, so I think there's two pieces of this that I want to address. First, let me just say, whatever you think the like launch situation is going to be like, you kind of have to set that aside, that it will be its own thing, because whatever the print run is this first time around, it will not likely be enough to cover initial demand. Very few card games have ever got that right to begin with, let alone one with such a beloved IP as this. So your day one analysis is going to be different from what I suspect future state will be. So I'm going to kind of strictly talk about future state. I firmly believe that accessibility is important for any card game, right? You want people to be able to play the game if they want to play the game. And I think Pastry is 100% correct that the company also, if there's demand for it, wants to be able to sell cards, right? You don't want to leave money on the table. If people want to buy your product, you want to be able to have product to sell to them. But there comes a point with almost every trading card game where one of two things happens. It's either there's just not enough supply, like long term, and that drives prices up just because there's not enough to go around, or there's enough supply, but there's still going to be these like secondary market prices, because when players get most of what they need for a deck, for a play set, whatever the case may be, they usually want to stop opening packs and just fill the rest of their collection in with singles. But the problem is if everybody, let's just say hypothetically, everybody gets to that 80% of their collection mark, and now they want to buy singles. If everybody does that, there's still not enough singles for everybody to fill the last 20%. So something always gives one way or the other. I think that this game will do its best to kind of bridge that gap, but I just want to set proper expectations that there will likely still be some singles, even for the base versions of stuff, that will probably have a cost, even after past the initial frenzy. I think the best way to keep those prices down, if I'm being entirely honest, is to have a very healthy support of limited play. And I don't just mean pre-releases, I mean at your major events. If you can put a prioritization on sealed events, a prioritization on draft events, then competitive-minded players are still opening product, and they're doing so in a situation where they would not normally do that. That's how you get more of those singles into circulation. And I think that would be one way long term to help with that potential problem.
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up.
Level of like, maybe if you're like, you know, your local events, maybe like if they reprint popular cards in like I don't know, whatever participation pack you end up getting at your store for playing an event. Like there's other ways for Riot to potentially reprint cards if that does become more of a problem, and I would hope they would use those avenues too. But yeah, for the most part, it's like, you know, the secondary market is going to secondary market, whether you like it or not. And it's funny because it's this thing that everyone knows is there, but the company never wants to say like, oh yeah, what's that thing? But I mean, can't not think about it when you're making stuff, also have to ignore when you're making stuff, which is an interesting paradox to be.
Yeah. I am glad you brought up limited play, Charmer, because I was going to go on a soapbox there, but that is, I think, one of the best ways to just naturally infuse product and infuse singles and trade fodder and all of that into the ecosystem, like globally and also locally. One thing that I will say that may have people upset, because there is a certain sect of TCG players online that hate that cards have value. But I think it's a good thing for people's collections to have value to them. Now, I'm not advocating for, you know, decks to be $3,000 to play. I don't want that. That's, you know, there's a line. But when you're opening packs, when you're doing the social things, when you're trading cards, when you're collecting cards, like, it is a good thing for your cards to have some value to them. It is nice to open a pack and not go through the pack and go, oh, didn't get a signature, throw those right in the trash. Like, you don't want the cards to be worth absolutely nothing when you open them. It's nice to have a good blend of cards. And then obviously, like, the super expensive stuff can be those chases that are alt art versions and not game pieces. But even, you know, I personally think it's a good thing to have cards have value. I think some of the chase epics probably will be 20, 25, maybe more dollars. And many of them will be significantly lower than that. And I think the rares will be significantly lower than that as well. And I think that there's a healthy balance there. It is really hard for any game dev to control that. Like Pastry was saying, secondary market is going to secondary market. And that's the nature of card games and just economics. But I think it's a matter of having that balance and turning the knobs where you can, but also not turning them too hard. Like, you don't want it to be Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it's like, okay, the starter deck has every single staple card in it and you can buy it. And now here's your Monster Reborn. Here's your Change of Heart. Here's all, I'm dating myself. That's like literally the first set of Yu-Gi-Oh! But like the starter decks just literally had all of the best cards in them. And it's like, okay, well, these are worth nothing. Because they're literally common cards in a starter deck. And I think that is not a great thing, because none of us are playing, none of us want Riftbound to be a LCG, I don't think. I mean, maybe people do, but I don't.
No.
Anyway,
I do.
That's enough.
Last thing I'll say is that having domains helps too. Like the fact that there aren't generics that can go in literally every single deck that are really powerful and centralizing potentially. Like having a like strict color system does help here too, because it decreases the likelihood that demand for a single card will massively eclipse every other card in the set. I mean, obviously it might happen. Like if, let's say, Kaiser is the best deck ever, everyone's going to want all the Kaiser cards, so those will get really expensive, and like you have to try and design a format that's fun and balanced, and you can only do that so much as a game company. But I think that will help as well with keeping prices hopefully a bit more reasonable, because can't print CNC. Because there's no generics.
True. All right, let's move on here to our next question. We got Danny Redman 8460 who says, what do you guys think about Riot's FAQ approach of changing card text after they've been released? Warhammer 40k style, where the text on the product that you've bought has been changed afterwards. And they go on to give an example of that. They say, this is super bad for new players, as the text on the cards that they're holding in their hand is wrong, and for older players, they may be unaware of the changes. For future sets, I'm hoping they release all the cards even further ahead of time so the community can spot the problems before printing. I'll take a stab at that one first, where it's like, no game dev ever wants to put out stuff that is wrong. No one ever wants to do that. So it's certainly not the intention of the devs to be like, oh, well, we're just putting completely untested stuff out here and fix our game. Oops, we already printed it. Sorry, here's a MS Paint document that has some changes on it. It's like, no, a lot of time, effort, and painstaking testing went into all of this. So it's a bit reductionist to, in my view, to basically be saying, oh, why didn't they do their job? Like, just do your job better, please, next time. Like, to me, this reads like, well, why aren't you making money? Just buy stocks that go up. Like, I'm getting a bit of that sentiment from this comment, but maybe I'm misreading it. Charmer, what do you think?
I mean, I think you're misreading it. I think it's probably somebody that's just like myself, that is firmly just filled with like a visceral hatred. Like, it brings out the Angie in me when there are erratas that occur. And that's just because I'm a big proponent of, like, the new player experience should be at the core of just about any game. And that in part means that the cards should do what they say on the card, right? So I usually just detest errata. Now, I say usually, though, this is a big but, because yes, there are a lot of card changes listed in the FAQ, but many of them are not functional changes. They are strictly clarification. And I do think that this is just a situation where, because it's the first set of the game, it's a brand new game. When you're playtesting, like, internally, and everybody on your playtest team after, the first hour or two just kind of inherently knows how the game works, you stop really thinking about, like, what it means to then teach the game to a brand new person. That's not to say that you don't revisit it during dev cycles. I'm just saying that it's very easy for you to kind of forget what might confuse other people, right? Whether it's people from other card games expecting it to work like card games they're coming from, right? Because I've seen a lot of Reddit posts about how is the chain links and whatever different from the stack in Magic. Similarly, there's people who might have never played a card game. They're just coming from League, or they're coming from Teamfight Tactics or whatever. So in this instance, because so many of these errata are really not functional changes, it's just more of a, hey, I read the FAQ changes mostly as, hey, if we wrote these cards today, this is the way that we would write them so that they do what they were intended to do, not that these are functional changes for how they were ever intended. And so I'm okay with that, and I do hope they learn from it in the future. I will also say, though, in the current climate of the world, it's just an impossible task to release like a set to a community before it hits the printer, because the things are hitting the printer so early. Right now, if you're not familiar, I'm not even talking about tariffs and the other global economic pressures, just card games alone have a lot of issues with the printers, because there's only so many printers that like exist that these major companies use, and so they're all vying for the same time. And so that's also why I chuckle when people are like, how could they not have printed enough cards? Why can't they just turn on more printers? Well, because there's a limited number of printers that exist in the card game world right now, and you have to reserve time to do it, and you might be stuck waiting in line after. So that's just the nature of the beast. So anyway, I just wanted to set proper expectations. There will likely never be a scenario where cards are released to the public before they've been sent to the printer, because it's just not feasible in the development cycle.
Nope. Especially when you're planning usually many sets ahead. I do kind of like the idea of maybe a company like, really trying to integrate vertically and just, buy in their own facilities and, invest some money, make your own printer.
There are some companies that exist that do that already, and they're still not meeting their own demand, and then had to rent out third-party printers.
Incredible. I guess
and I'm sure Blevins is laughing because he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
to kind of answer this last question, I generally agree with Chalmer. I think do I think it's good? No. Is it inevitable? Yes. If anything, I'm glad it's happened now, because the only way they're ever going to learn is by exposing the game to millions and millions of people and figuring out that they made some mistakes. And because it isn't a live service game, it's a card game. Yes, you can patch and change things in the sense that you get better and smarter and your rules get more clarity as you do more and more of these. But it is what it is, because like Chalmer said, you have to print the cards way earlier than people would ever see them. But I think this is good in the sense of now they know how to format cards better. And the alternative was that they waited even longer for people to see this game, which I don't think anyone wants either. I would much rather, errata sucks, but I would much rather have this. Is definitely an errata pass that feels way less egregious than things that have happened in other games, for one. But even if you just assume it's all blanket the same and you don't like errata, and that's a reasonable take, errata definitely feels kind of stinky. This is ultimately a good thing, and it will make the game better. And I would rather play this game with 30 plus cards functionally errated even slightly than have to wait 6 more months to play, or probably even longer, right? Because they've been in the printing press for way longer. If the game is coming out in October in stores.
Yeah. I brought up on a previous episode that the newest set of Magic the Gathering had a card that was a common that was just had the wrong text on it. So every single pre-release around the world had to have the judges explaining this common card at an intro tournament, that it just didn't work the way that the card read, which again, it's a mistake. Things happen. That's, it's forgivable. It's fine. Even if it's, Wizards of the Coast. But the thing that is quite egregious in my mind is what Lorcana did with one of their overpowered cards, which is instead of banning it, they just changed the card. It's less no, the card that you're reading just does a different thing now. It's that's unacceptable.
A little bit a complete imagine the entire text box was rewritten. That's what Lorcana did. It still blows my mind.
Yeah, it's literally unbelievable to me.
I don't represent Riot. I don't think Riftbound will ever do that, and I think that's a good thing, because that is not it.
Yeah,
that's not it.
And if they do, we will talk about it here
have the
on
tape.
The Winning Point. We will have the tape. That is going to be our show for today, gentlemen. Thank you so much for chatting. This was a good one. Again, we thought maybe we wouldn't have enough stuff to talk about, and here
Shockingly,
we are over time. Shocking as always. But what's not shocking is to have you like and subscribe to the channel here. We'd love to have you back. We're going to be, talking about nonsense and, of course, Riftbound here on The Winning Point. But I am the Blevins. That has been Charmer. That has been Pastry. And we'll see you next week on Winning Point episode number 11. Bye.